Hello again, and thank you for joining us. My name is Charlie Joyce, and I'm happy to welcome you to the Providence College podcast. Our producer is Chris Judge of the class of 2005. Our guest today is Megan Oteri of the PC class of 1996. Megan is the CEO and founder of Brick Scholars. It's a mobile learning and innovation lab that helps corporate and executive teams, in Megan's words, connect, create, and collaborate their way to solutions. Brick Scholars also offers creativity and STEM discipline workshops for K-12 students in schools, camps, and community programs, as well as professional development for organizations and schools. Megan majored in elementary and special education at PC and earned her master's degree in English creative writing from East Carolina University. She has worked in the field of education for 20 years, including 14 years as a teacher in special education, elementary education, and middle and high school language arts. She's a firm believer that learning should be fun, and to that end is a certified Lego Serious Play facilitator. She's also a freelance writer, photographer, and a teaching artist for several community arts councils in North Carolina, where she lives. And finally, a fun fact about Megan is that she was a member of the Friars 1993 Big East Championship women's soccer team. Megan, welcome to the Providence College podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I wanted to ask you, Brick Scholars, that's an intriguing title for your business. What are the mission and major objectives of Brick Scholars, Megan?
Well, the mission is to help engage children and adults in programming and professional development that fosters playful learning and develops 21st century skills. So really, in a nutshell, I help empower teams to create, collaborate, and communicate their way to solutions. Some of our objectives are to develop programs that help foster 21st century skills. We teach coding to children. We also teach digital literacy and 21st century skills. We help children and teens and also adults be problem solvers to develop those skills so they can look for solutions from a different lens. And we help teach learning and innovation skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and innovation.
You work obviously with a wide expanse of age groups and organizations, Megan. With your classroom teaching background, it's important, I think, to point out that you don't necessarily work just with school children, as you've alluded. In fact, much of what you do is geared to the corporate world. What kind of programs, you started mentioning a few, do you lead in that particular sector?
Well, I work with adults in the aspect of working with corporate executive teams. I also work with organizations. Sometimes I'm asked to come into a business school and develop a workshop centered around a professor's topic. So most recently, I went into a business school and did a personal branding workshop that I designed for this class. So the workshops for adults are tailor-made. So we take a theme or a topic or a pain point and design that workshop around what the client needs. So in this case, with that business school, I built a personal branding workshop for the students because it was a marketing class and their topic they were talking about was branding. So I also have done leadership workshops and leadership development. We can take a team through a half-day workshop, a full-day workshop, depending on what they're trying to target and what their specific needs are. So we really take a lot of time to sit down with the client and find out what exactly they're trying to accomplish, what might be their pain point, what they really need to focus on, so that we can help them or lead them to those solutions through the workshop method that I use, which is Lego Serious Play.
Right. And when you say teams, what size groups are we talking about customarily?
Well, it depends. If we're going to get really focused on a company or a business pain point, I like to take a team of no more than 12 executives, that the decision makers, the people that are involved in the business, and usually that number stays small because as a facilitator, any more than 12 people gets really difficult to lead them to where they need to be led. So with other groups, so like an organization, or if it's a breakout session for a conference, I can work with bigger groups. So it really depends on what the venue is and what the I guess what they're trying to achieve. So we can, most of my workshops are 12 people or less with a core executive team. And then it's depending if I go into like a university or business school, I work with bigger groups because, most classes aren't just 12 students.
Sure. Similarly, Megan, when you're working with school children, is there a typical workshop that you present?
Well, I build the program, so I build STEAM programs for kids. So STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. So these programs are built and designed to engage the kids and teach them coding skills. Also, storytelling is embedded in it. So a lot of the programs I design have Lego robotics in them. I also sometimes I use Scratch as a coding platform to teach the kids Scratch and different coding platforms. And then what's infused in all our workshops for children and adults is creativity and collaboration and communication, working together as a team. So a lot of students find it really easy to work alone. They prefer working alone. So having kids work together in teams to problem solve is really powerful for them because that's developing a future ready skill because they're going to need those skills when they go into the workforce. So no program is really typically the same, but this summer I'm offering a new camp that's called The Magic of Coding. So it's inspired by Harry Potter. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. And so that's really exciting for kids to take that theme, but also embed, augmented reality and also coding and storytelling and activities that just really engage them in a hands-on, minds-on way.
When you established Brick Scholars in 2015, that represented a significant change in your career. What inspired you to shift from the traditional classroom teaching role?
Well, I'd like to say it was a little bit of providence. I think it was really, God's will of just leading me to some opportunities that presented themselves, and things just really fell in place. I always was very passionate and interested in non-traditional learning. I really was never a typical traditional teacher, so I always embedded, learning should be fun in my classroom, and engagement and hands-on learning has always been really important for me. So I had the opportunity to, as an educator in 2013, to take a study abroad course in 2013 and 2014 school year. And I was teaching special ed at the time, and the class was a study abroad digital and writing integration course. So I really liked that because I love technology and I love writing. So those two combinations really were exciting for me. So I took the course, and it was also pretty exciting to be able to go study for 3 weeks in England. The course was. And it was a grad school class that we also attended classes right here in North Carolina at North Carolina State University. So we learned about all these products, and one of them was a Lego education product called Story Starter. And then the digital component was Story Visualizer. So I had the opportunity to use this tool, and for me, that was the first time I had ever put them in a framework that this is a learning tool. So I really liked it because as a writer myself, it would help me ideate really quickly an abstract and complex thought. And I really like that because a lot of times you look at a blank page and it's just really daunting. So I was able to articulate this really complex thought very quickly. And I was like, this is a great tool for kids. So I really just became a little bit enamored with Legos as a learning tool. And so then I learned about other educational tools in that course as well, and it was a really great experience. But that's really the kernel. And then from there, I just developed more strategies to use it in the classroom. And then Lego Education invited me to their headquarters, which were at the time were in Kansas, Pittsburgh, Kansas. And I went out there and I learned all about the pedagogy, and I learned about different products and coding and building. And then I learned about this pedagogy called Constructionism, which we'll probably talk about more later in this interview. But that's really where it started. And then what really, really set me on fire was that I came home from that training really excited, and I saw my son, through my son's eyes, he was 5 at the time, and learning just became alive for him. He was just so excited. So it was really exciting to see through his eyes what coding can do for a student. And he's, a very bright, great child, but I loved how it helped him. I saw the need in my own community. I live in eastern North Carolina, so I'm about 45 minutes east of Raleigh. And so there's a lot of opportunities in Raleigh and the Research Triangle, but there's not that many in eastern North Carolina with coding classes. So that's when I started Brick Scholars. And from there, it's been really an exciting adventure, and I keep growing and evolving.
The Legos both with school children and with with professionals in the corporate world.
Yeah, they're learning tools. So like anything, it's a tool. In some of my adult workshops, I use other tools and other workshop methods. But for kids, I integrate a lot of STEAM tools. So I use a variety of products, but I do use the Legos to I use a Lego education product called We Do 2.0, which is an elementary coding platform, but it's also compatible with Scratch, which comes out of MIT. And Mitch Resnick has done an amazing job developing Scratch with his team at MIT. So it really, it's a tool that I use and I integrate other tools. But with adults, yes, I do use Legos as, I guess you could say, a communication tool and also a collaboration tool. So Lego Series Play is a workshop method. You have to be a certified facilitator to lead a workshop, and you go through an extensive training. And it is a specific workshop method. It actually was developed by the Lego Group in, I believe, 2010, and then they made it open source so people can use it if they're, certified trainer in it. And at first, when I do work with adults, they're a little bit thrown off, like, oh, this is just a toy. But when you put groups of people, even in kids, you get when they're doing playful learning, you put them in flow. So in the learning environment or in a workshop environment, you have to scaffold the program so that flow is, you kind of understand it as in the zone. So you get people in the zone so that they're most comfortable and they're challenged at that just right spot. So does that answer that question?
It does, yeah. It's a really fascinating approach, and I think especially with adults, I would think it's really attention-getting. You find pretty much the groups that you work with are receptive to your approach and your presentations. They get into it right away? Well,
it takes, for adults, it's interesting you ask that, Charlie, because it's a different approach with kids and adults, of course. And with kids, what's beautiful and brilliant about kids, and what we need to foster more of, I believe, is they're not afraid to make mistakes. I learn a lot from kids in that fastest. They look at failure as a learning adventure. It's an opportunity to correct a mistake to make it better. So, we also understand that term as innovation in business. So with adults, I can't do the kind of work that I would be able. I can't just give adults Legos and then the task. Like, I really have to scaffold them into using the workshop method to achieve the goal. So I sit down with my client ahead of time and really get down to what they need and what they're trying to solve. So the workshop is designed around that. So that is part of that kind of process. But in the workshop, a lot of adults have a hard time with making a mistake. I just was at a workshop at a university, and a student right off the bat said, I think I'm failing. I'm doing this wrong. And I told them, and I always say this in my workshops, there's no right or wrong answer here. It is what you create. So that helps people too, so that they know that it's risk-free. But so in a workshop, you take a group through what's called skills building. So we do an hour. If it's a full day workshop, we take at least an hour to get them comfortable building metaphors. Well, we remember stories 22 times more than facts and figures alone. And that's a statistic from Sanford B School. So really it takes time to get them, I guess, engaged, but just a little bit, because then they're having fun and they're in flow and they don't even know it. So everything I do is very purposeful. I like to say that with our corporate workshops, there's play with a purpose. But yeah, it's a lot of fun because I know the workshop method and I know the pedagogy and I know why Legos are a powerful learning tool. Furthermore, why hands-on learning is so powerful. I understand all of that. I got a lot of that education at Providence College of why hands-on learning works. But working with an adult group, you really see those aha moments, and that's pretty magical.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to
ask. More powerful. It's magical with kids.
Sure. I was going to ask you about that in terms of your teaching philosophy, because you obviously seem right now at the point in your career where you have a very light and hands-on, tools-oriented approach, to teaching and learning. And has your philosophy in terms of teaching changed much over, looking back, say, to your first couple of years in the profession, or has this kind of always been you, the way you are?
Grew up with a learning disability in elementary school, so I always was just gravitated towards learning differently, and I really needed hands-on learning to really grasp concepts. And I also, when I went to Providence College, I was a special education major and an elementary ed major. And I think that's because I really realized people learn differently. We all think so differently, and that's such a wonderful thing. And you can't really teach a group of students or a group of people the same exact way. So I've always just loved learning in a hands-on alternative way. And I really love experiential learning where what you do is that you experience it. You really break it down and break it apart. So I think that I've evolved in the fact that education has changed, and I'm a very flexible person and very versatile. And I went to Providence College from Wyoming, so I'm used to jumping into things, and I like to learn new types of learning tools. So I've evolved in that aspect, which I've been able to use the tools that are out there. We have so many wonderful technology tools at our disposal. But really at its root, I think I always was that just non-traditional learner, but also that non-traditional teacher. And I think an experience that I think back that really kind of paints the picture of how I love to learn. And I think it had a big influence on how I taught and still teach is a class I took in third grade. And it's really the only class I remember from elementary school. It was a mixed grade class. It was an alternative class. And we did everything in hands-on experiences. So there were students third grade through fifth grade, but we never sat down in a desk, which I loved. I always remember just walking around the room freely. And then we also didn't use textbooks. So I think that really had a very, very important effect on my life as an educator. So those early experiences, I think, play a part in everyone's life.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation. So much of what you do now, at least with school children, Megan, is rooted in the STEAM disciplines. It seems, however, that you have a passion for the integration of art in particular in your work. Tell us a little more about that integration and what it means to you.
Oh, well, thanks for asking that question. I love the arts, and arts integration is also a big part of how I teach and the work that I do, even with adults. So arts integration, when I was teaching in Wyoming, I taught at a residential treatment center, and I had students that were, I guess you could say, difficult. They weren't motivated to be there. They had a lot of issues. It was a middle and high school, and I taught language arts and also special education. And I saw that, as a practicing writer myself, I was very involved with the local arts council there. And so I started getting involved more with their grant opportunities, and I wrote grants to bring in writers and art people that could show my, language arts students how does a book get crafted. So I had writers come in and they would lead workshops. We had a didgeridoo musician from Australia come in and teach them about music, and we integrated that into the subjects that we were studying. So arts integration has always been a powerful tool for me as a teacher. And then I moved to North Carolina, and I had that experience of bringing in the artists and the arts integration in the classroom. And then I actually became a teaching artist myself. So I developed creative writing workshops and photography workshops that I lead in schools and with organizations. So arts integration, a lot of people think, oh, it's just like doing art. Actually, arts integration is using the arts, teaching through the arts. So even using dance to teach math concepts, using creative writing to teach concepts. You can even use poetry to teach science. So there's using the arts, and this is important because a lot of people understand, they know STEM, but STEAM, I'm a STEAM activist, a STEAM advocate, because I believe the arts and humanities provide an opportunity for us to look at a problem, and it provides a entry point that's a lot easier and less intimidating for people to walk through, because everybody can really understand art. It's just in our bones. We're meant to understand the arts. It's part of our humanity, and it helps break down more complex things and also gives us stories to put around difficult topics. So the arts are really an important tool to use, and the teachers that are embedding arts integration into their own classrooms, you can see that they're getting those really rich discussions and those rich ideas because of that infusion.
You mentioned a little earlier in the conversation one of the things that you're fond of from a pedagogical standpoint is the concept of constructionism. I'm not sure a lot of people know a lot about that. Is there a simple way to describe that, and how do you use it?
Good question. So constructionism, if you broke it down in one sentence, is as you build knowledge with your hands, you build that knowledge in your hands, you build that knowledge in your mind. So back to hands-on learning, as we create anything with our hands, you use 60 to 80% of your brain capacity. And that's because your hands are connected to your right and left side of your brain. So when you use your hands to create things and work out problems, tinker, there's really a growth now of maker spaces in schools and also maker spaces in communities. As humans, I believe we're meant to make. We're creators. So even with digital making, by using making something digitally, you still are using your hands, and that engages the whole brain.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about your PC career. How well did Providence College prepare you for your career?
I think it prepared me in a way that was a little bit unexpected. I think now I'm 20 years out of college, maybe 20 plus. I've already had my 20-year reunion. But I think what PC did for me was it really provided a foundation that helped prepare me to really walk into any situation. I can network and speak with people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, because it really gave me a solid foundation of educational courses. But even the one course that I think is Western Civ. So I find myself being able to name a philosopher or name a type of art when I'm in these general conversations, and I go back to, I'm like, oh, I learned that in Western Civ. That was more than 25 years ago. So the courses I took in education were just top notch. I had wonderful instructions, Dr. Lima and Dr. Sullivan. I even took an ethics and philosophy course with different Western Civ professors. One that I really loved that taught religion was Father Fergus. And I also took a philosophy course with Dr. Arthur Jackson. So these courses that were just part of my undergrad were just really, they had an effect on me later in life, because the education and the support that you have on the campus, and it is relatively a small campus, and the students, at the time when I went, there was about 3,000 students, and I love the Providence College community because they help each other out, and they're very supportive. I mean, you don't ever meet a friar that's not a friend. I remember I met a friar. I saw his Providence College shirt at an amusement park I think we were in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and I started talking to him, and we just started gabbing, and it's like you make a friend. Like the friars have their own network of just really supportive people trying to help each other, and I think that plays out in a way that you can't really measure.
Sure. Yeah, forever a friar, right?
Yep, forever a friar.
Megan, what advice would you give the aspiring teachers at PC today?
I would say that, to make your classroom the place that you and your heart, there's so many, there's pedagogy and there's classroom instructional techniques, but really you're the heart of your classroom, and you have the ability to change the future. So everything you do you're not able to measure it in that moment, but you do have an effect on students. So just my advice is just to keep doing what you're doing, because you have been called to teach, and it's not motivated by salaries. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into that, but teachers, they're called to do it, and it's a profession that is I have the highest respect for teachers, because they're helping our future leaders find their future careers.
Megan, it's been great speaking with someone with such spirit for their career and the well-being of others. Thanks so much for being a part of our podcast today.
Thank you. It was an honor to speak with you.
And thanks to you, our listeners, for joining us on the Providence College podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast in all the right places: iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. If you like what you hear, please share it with others. We also encourage feedback at podcast@providence.edu. Thanks again to our producer, Chris Judge. I'm Charlie Joyce. Until next time.